A 22-year-old female, grew up in a family where men prank and tease each other. Ever since my fiancé, Tim, 23, and I got engaged, my cousin, brother, dad, and uncle joked about running some tests to see what kind of man Tim is. They've done stuff like forcing him to play chess 4 times in a row, secretly slashing his tires to see if he'd fix them himself, like a man, or get help, like those lazy guys. They'd ask him questions like what joke he'd like to tell his future mother-in-law, his opinions on kids, Jesus, gender equality, etc. They also tested his fishing and hunting skills, overwhelmed him with hypothetical scenarios to test his decision-making abilities and mental strength. They kept calling him slow and soft, but he has a medical condition, asthma, and they think he's making excuses. I demanded they stop, but Dad said this is just typical stuff men challenge each other with and said that I was ruining the fun. Last week, they took him on a 3-day trip and hit his inhaler. He left them and returned in 7 hours, and he told me. I was seething after he said they admitted to hiding it as a challenge. I exploded on them when they returned. My cousin asked if little Timmy ran to me to tattle. I yelled at all 4 of them that they were uninvited to my wedding. My brother freaked out, saying it was a prank, and they were going to give it back. Dad said they'd apologize if I insisted. But Tim will have lost the little respect they gained for him, and in their eyes, he will always be the soft college kid who's not up for the challenge. So I called him and the others awful. Then I left. My cousin is begging that we talk. My uncle has been quiet. But Dad is so mad, and now he's getting Mom involved to get me to reconsider this decision. But I keep refusing to re-invite them. Finally, Mom is saying I'm exaggerating and should let bygones be bygones, and not let this ruin my relationship with my family. Am I the idiot for making it my hill to die on, or am I exaggerating? Not the idiot. This doesn't sound like pranking, but more like bullying. Who slashes tires as a prank or messes with someone's health as a prank? They just seem like big bullies to me. In my family, we tease each other, play jokes, and trust me, this is not what we do. Pranking is meant to be harmless fun, and none of these are harmless. I have asthma, and this wasn't a prank. This was them seeing if he would literally die. Stealing someone's inhaler out in the wilderness is trying to kill that person. They didn't even stick around. So what will he do if he had an attack? This wasn't a prank. Where do they even escalate from here? Waterboarding. Like, seriously, do you have any idea what it's like not being able to breathe? They took his inhaler. These people would be as dead to me as Tim could have been. Seriously, OP, just slash their tires, burn their rented suits, and give them the wrong time or address, and see if they're man enough to still make it. It's just a prank is not an excuse. The relationship is ruined, so why not enjoy it a little bit? Yeah. Not the idiot. Sorry doesn't cut it. What if he had an asthma attack and wanted to see if he was man enough to go through with it without his inhaler? This is so toxic. You don't need them at your wedding, and honestly, if your mother ends up not going, at least she's made her choice, and you know that. I'm sorry, but the men in your family have a very toxic view of masculinity. Having a chronic condition doesn't make you less of a man. Your fiancé is a trooper for putting up with them. You are the idiot, OP, for not shutting their antics down sooner and continuing to subject him to these bullies. They are clear and simple, and now their pranks have turned deadly. You're supposed to protect him, just like he's supposed to protect you. Even if that means from your family. Get it together. Honestly, the contact would have ceased after the slashed tires, for me. I, a 45-year-old male, moved into my girlfriend's 25-year-old apartment 5 months ago, and she also has an infant son who lives with us. She's a brilliant woman, and I couldn't have gotten any luckier if I tried. A couple of months ago, I lost my job, so I typically stay home, look after her son, do the occasional housework, and play video games. I've noticed that she has this weird cup she drinks out of, which is quite ugly and malformed. It had paint strewn all over it, and I'm pretty sure it was broken when friends come over, which is a rarity. They eyeball her when she drinks out of it and use it, and it's pretty embarrassing. I asked her if she'd mind not using that cup when friends are here. However, she refused. Yesterday, I was in the apartment when she was at work, and I went to make myself a drink. I saw the cup on the shelf and thought that it would just be best to throw it away. It's deformed, ugly, and there are more intact cups she could be using. I threw it in the kitchen bin, made my drink, and didn't think anything of it. When she arrived home from work later in the day and was making us dinner, she started freaking out. I asked what the matter was, and she said that she couldn't find her cup. I told her that I'd thrown it away as it was ugly, embarrassing, and there were more intact cups to use. She began to cry and started rummaging through the rubbish bin. She told me that her autistic son had made that for her in school a couple of years ago, and that it was one of her prized possessions. I tried to explain my view that it was embarrassing, especially when guests were over. She didn't listen and kicked me out. So now I'm at my mom's house as I'm writing this. I've tried to message her as I don't want my girl to be upset. However, she hasn't responded. I thought her reaction was over the top and completely unwarranted. Am I the idiot? Yikes. There's less of an age gap between your girlfriend and her son than between you, OP, and your girlfriend. Is this even real? What is an unemployed 45-year-old doing bouncing between a 25-year-old mom's apartment or their own parents' home? You have no excuse to justify throwing that cup away. You are the idiot. How is a cup embarrassing? You really should have more important things to worry about at your age. For example, why haven't you matured enough to date someone your own age? You're sitting there playing video games and doing occasional housework while waiting for her to cook your dinner. And that's what's embarrassing. When friends come over, that's even before throwing away the cup, dude. You lived with her for 5 months, fixated on this cup the whole time, and never once found out that her son made it. I find this implausible, so spare us your surprised Pikachu face. It doesn't even matter who made it. Throwing away someone else's stuff is not okay. A 45-year-old man should know this. She doesn't need 2 children in her life. Do better. Lucy left, an hour passed, and I tried to get hold of her. I managed to get through, and she asked me if I could ring her a taxi. She slurred an address that I didn't hear because she was so drunk. I asked her to text it to me, but she didn't. I didn't hear from her again that night. After making 40 calls, it was 6 a.m., and the baby had woken up, screaming. My partner and I don't have kids, so I didn't know what to do. I couldn't find nappies, and the baby was on formula. It was a nightmare. In the end, we waited until 7 a.m. and tried to comfort the poor baby, but she wouldn't stop crying. It got to the point where I said we needed to ring the police. The police came over and tried to contact her, but couldn't get through. We managed to contact the father over Facebook. By 8:30 a.m., I received a message from Lucy asking, "Where's my baby?" I told her what happened and asked where she was. She just kept repeating, "Where's my child?" The father then came to pick the child up, and I explained the situation. The police asked for my account of what happened, and we were told to drive home. If they needed anything else, they would call. The father has since taken her to court, and she hasn't seen her child in 6 months. She messages me now and again from a new number, asking if I'm happy and saying I'm the reason she doesn't have her child. I'm getting to the point where it's harassment. I've blocked her on everything, yet she still finds a way. I can't help but feel so guilty in case I did the wrong thing. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It almost sounds like her real plan was to go out that night, and she invited you over so she could trick you into taking care of her kid all night. If she can't get even partial custody of her child after 6 months, I have to wonder if there's more going on than what you witnessed. It's a little strange that she needed to meet someone in the middle of the night, like when she's drunk and has a baby in the house. Leaving someone to take care of her child while she runs off for the night doing who knows what is not okay, especially if she isn't going to pick up the phone. I don't know what she was expecting. I'm not saying there are never bad decisions made in child custody battles, but I feel like this wasn't the first time she's done something like this. If the court decided not to let her see her child at all, usually a parent will at least get supervised visits. A really big thank you, OP, for having done the right thing, for putting the daughter into hands that really care for her. Your friend put her daughter and her well-being into your inexperienced hands to leave the house for a few minutes so she could get drunk. Her priorities weren't in the right place, and you did the responsible thing by taking care of the baby. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. Agree. Every time she finds a way to message you, you could message back that she lost custody of her child because getting drunk and partying was more important to her than her child. Maybe it will actually sink in and she'll get her act together. But whatever her actions, you did not cause this. She did. I'm 40 years old, and I recently lost my father, who was 76. I have 2 siblings, my twin brother and my older sister, who is 44. We all grew up together in my parents' house. a large multi-story 5-bedroom house worth almost $500,000. My father's will stated that his assets, including cash, the house, etc., would be divided equally among the three of us. While in town for my father's funeral, I asked my siblings when a good time would be to meet up about putting the house on the market. My sister told me there was no need because my father had sold the house prior to his death. I was confused because he was still living in it. My sister went on to explain that my father had been sick for years and was deep in debt, so he needed to sell the house. Of course, that would be a complicated undertaking with his health as poor as it was. So, my sister and her husband bought the house so he could continue living there for free. I was stunned. When my father died, he only had about $120,000 in liquid assets. Her story made no sense to me. I demanded details, and she said that the mortgage lender would only approve them for $375,000, which is far less than the house is worth. My dad spent the other $250,000 paying off his debts, paying for treatments, and maintaining his quality of life, as my sister put it. So basically, she's telling me my inheritance is $40,000 and no more, while she gets that plus a house. I call her a thief who took advantage of her father when he was vulnerable. She basically pocketed the difference in the house's value out of my inheritance. She got really mad and told me that she and her husband have been struggling to pay 2 mortgages for years while raising 4 kids. Not my kids, not my problem, and getting no income from the second house. But that was her choice, and she got a house out of it. She started yelling at me and crying, so her husband intervened and took her away. I turned to my brother for support, but he just shrugged and said he couldn't find it within him to care about her house after we just buried Dad. I miss Dad too, and I hate fighting with my sister. But what she did was wrong. I've reached out to a lawyer and am planning to sue my sister, but I'm nervous. I know this will permanently fracture my family. I just want what's rightfully mine. But is it worth blowing up my sister's life? Am I an idiot? I'm the mother of a young girl, and my ex-husband has her stay with him every second weekend of the month. She's wanted her ears pierced for a long time, but I think she's too young. I've told her she could get them done when she's 10, but it doesn't stop her from asking. When I picked her up last Sunday, I found out he'd gone and have her ears pierced at Claire's, of all places. I got really angry, I won't deny that. I asked him why the heck he'd done this, and told him he had no right to do so without consulting me. He told me she's old enough to get it done, and that she asked him. As she's his daughter, he had a right to do this with her. I just don't feel like I can trust him anymore, if he'd do this behind my back. I grounded my daughter for the week for asking him, when she knew she wasn't allowed, but she's a child. He doesn't have that excuse. I'm not sure I wanted to have her overnight anytime soon, and I'm planning to consult my lawyer over this. My family thinks I'm overreacting, as it's just earrings, but I honestly feel I can't trust him as a co-parent anymore. It's even worse that he took her to Claire's, which has a horrible reputation for their piercings. Am I overreacting in this scenario? Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. First off, you punished your daughter for asking her other parent for something when you said no. Seriously, what kid doesn't do that? You're going way overboard by taking away your daughter over something like ear piercings. As far as getting her ears pierced at Claire's, well, I got both of mine done at Claire's, and it was fine. If I got another one done, I'd probably go to a tattoo parlor or a piercing salon. But it's not the end of the world. She's not a possession, which is how you're treating her. If you don't want something for her, speak with your ex. That's how co-parenting works. Not letting your kid get a permanent body modification treats her as an object. What are you talking about? If anything, the father is treating her as an object since he did zero research before permanently modifying her body and got it done at a place that is known to be incompetent, dirty, and dangerous. You have full custody, and your ex has visitation, which makes you not the idiot in this case. He had no right to make this decision without talking to you first. I don't like that your ex made himself the good guy here, because it showed your daughter that he doesn't have to work as part of a team or be the co-parent. It also sets up a bad precedent because later on, well, mom doesn't let me do X, but dad will become a very real thing. You're not the idiot, and he needs to be reminded that even though you're not together, he has a responsibility to model good parenting for his kid and show cooperation and mutual respect.